If we don't do anything, and I mean if Congress and this current administration don't actually step up and do something real and meaningful, then in a short few months, everybody's Social Security check is going to be cut substantially. And that's not just me saying it. That's not just some guy on YouTube with an opinion. Let me pull it up right here. This is coming directly from the Social Security trustees themselves. Every single year for the past 40 years, the Social Security trustees have met, the Congressional Budget Office has met, and virtually every other independent think tank and financial research organization out there has sat down and said, okay, we are looking at the actual numbers for the Social Security Administration. We're looking at how much money they bring in every year, how much money they pay out every single month in people's Social Security checks, retirement benefits, survivor benefits, spouse benefits, disability benefits, SSI, all of the rest of it. And they go through all of those numbers very carefully, and they say, okay, here is what's going to happen based on the current trajectory. So you might be sitting there saying to yourself, Ed, yes, I've heard about this for 40 years. Nothing has happened. They've been telling us this is coming for 40 years. And you are absolutely right about that. They have been telling us this is coming for 40 years. And we're talking about all the presidents going all the way back to what happened 40 years ago. The Greenspan Commission, 40 years ago in the early 1980s under the Reagan administration. That was the last time Congress actually did something meaningful. They raised the full retirement age up to 67, and now it is 67 for everybody born in 1960 and after. They also tax Social Security benefits, which pretty much nobody in this community likes hearing, and I completely understand that frustration. But the taxation of Social Security benefits actually does bring $54 billion into Social Security every year. And you might be saying, well, wait a second, what do you mean I pay to the IRS? Yeah. The IRS collects those taxes and then gives them back to Social Security, and it goes into essentially the trust fund, or it goes out as a benefit check to the lady down the street who's collecting Social Security benefits. That's how it works. So for 40 years, these politicians and these committees have had plans, and they've talked about it, and they've had proposal after proposal, committee after committee, hearing after hearing, press conference after press conference. And what did they actually get done? Zero, zilch, nada. They haven't done one single substantial thing to actually prevent your checks from being cut. And let me be very, very clear about something, because this is a point that a lot of people genuinely misunderstand. And it's important that everybody in this community truly understands how this works. There is no grandfathering in. There is no, oh, well, that's only going to affect future people who haven't started collecting yet. No, there is no, well, I don't care about the woman down the street who's 60 years old. I'm already receiving my check. I'm good. I'm safe. No. That is absolutely not how this works. It's going to be cut for everybody. Every single person currently receiving Social Security benefits. Every single person. That is how Social Security works when the trust fund runs out of money. Here are the actual numbers, and this comes directly from the Social Security Trustees Report 2024. This is the most current one available. The new 2025 report isn't out yet. It should be published in a couple of months, and once that comes out, we will absolutely run the numbers again and update you on anything that has changed. But as of the most current data available, here is what the trustees are telling us. The money that comes in every year is running out. And before I go any further, I want to address something I know a lot of you have heard, and I want to put it to rest right now. The money was not stolen. That has been one of the primary distractions politicians have been throwing at us for 40 years to keep us all angry and pointing fingers in the wrong direction. They've been saying, oh, the money was stolen. It was given away to Ukraine. It was given to immigrants. It's all completely false. The money was not stolen. The trust fund is still there. If you are receiving Social Security benefits right now, about 10% of your Social Security check currently comes from the trust fund. And think about it this way. If you have personal savings and you take a little money out of your savings account every single month to cover your expenses, guess what? Your savings are not going to last forever. That's just basic math. That's exactly how this works with Social Security. You take money out of the trust fund every month, and at some point, that trust fund is going to be empty. And the trust fund is what's going to be covering an increasingly larger portion of benefits in the coming years. We're talking about January 2033. That is the projected depletion date based on current numbers. So you're going to get about 83 more checks. This is February 2026 right now. So as of right now, and again, this may change once the new 2025 report comes out, it may be even fewer. But as of right now, according to the numbers from the Social Security trustees, in about 83 more checks, the trust fund is going to be completely gone. Empty. Zero. And right now, the trust fund is covering about 10% of what's being paid out. Next year, it'll be covering around 11 or 12%. And the year after that, a little more. And then 83 checks from now, at that moment, the last month, no more trust fund, gone. Which means 23% of your check would be cut immediately and automatically. So if you don't want that to happen, the question becomes, what do we actually need to do? And what we haven't done in the last 40 years is actually hold these politicians accountable. We haven't made them actually get off their hands and do something real. So let's talk about what the current administration is doing right now, because I think this is really important for people to hear and understand. As I mentioned, none of these administrations have done it going back decades. They've had committees, they've talked about it, they've had proposals, they've held hearings. But what did they actually get done in terms of actually protecting your Social Security check from being cut? Zero. Zilch. Nada. And the current administration? What is the current administration's actual plan to make sure your check doesn't get cut by 23%? Guess what? Zero. Not a zilch. There is talk. There are people saying, no, he's going after fraud, waste, and abuse, and that's going to fix everything. No. Let's talk about that, because I think it's really important that people understand the actual numbers here. Is there fraud, waste, and abuse at the Social Security Administration? Of course there is. Absolutely. Social Security employees find it every single day. When I ran my office, and I ran the third busiest Social Security office in the entire country, we found fraud, waste, and abuse on a regular basis, and we were able to address it and shut it down. That's real, and that's important. But here's the thing. It's now going to be significantly more difficult for Social Security employees to find that fraud, waste, and abuse, because those employees are barely keeping their heads above water right now. They're actually drowning because the decision was made to cut a massive number of Social Security Administration jobs. So I would actually argue that we're going to see more fraud, waste, and abuse going forward, not less, because you've eliminated so many of the experienced people who were actually finding and stopping it in the first place. Now, Elon Musk cannot find millions of so-called zombies receiving Social Security benefits. He's already essentially admitted that. He was looking at the wrong database. He's a billionaire, so he didn't come out and directly say, I made a mistake. He just kind of doubled down and moved on to the next thing. But the bottom line is, he didn't find the massive fraud he claimed was there. And here's why that claim never really made sense to begin with. There is fraud, waste, and abuse in the system, yes, but nowhere near the scale being claimed. And here's the critical point that I really want everyone to understand and internalize. Even if they found and eliminated every single dime of fraud, waste, and abuse in the entire Social Security system, every last penny, your check would still be cut by about 22%. That is how small the actual fraud, waste, and abuse number is relative to the overall funding shortfall. Everybody has that one story. Oh, I know this guy, whose sister knew somebody who was collecting disability, and they definitely shouldn't be. Okay, I hear that. But I guarantee that if I came to your town and said, okay, show me everybody you know who's collecting disability, you'd show me maybe 1 or 2 people. And then I'd show you 100 people in your same neighborhood who are collecting Social Security retirement benefits completely legitimately. So out of those 100 people, you've got maybe 1. We're talking less than 1% in terms of actual benefits. So fraud, waste, and abuse, yes, absolutely address it. Absolutely clean it up. That's a slam dunk. Nobody disagrees with that. But it is not going to solve the funding shortfall. It's not going to close that 23% gap. It's not even close. So let's talk about what would actually fix this, because there is a real answer here, even if nobody in power wants to talk about it seriously. The Social Security Trust Fund was not stolen. The previous administration had one plan on the table that actually made mathematical sense, which was to raise the FICA cap. Here's how that works right now. This year, people who make over $184,500 no longer pay FICA, meaning they no longer pay Social Security taxes on any income above that number. Under $184,500, you pay. Everything above that, you don't pay. You pay 6.2% of your paycheck to Social Security. If you make $50,000 a year, you pay 6.2% on all of it. If you make $5 million a year, you pay 6.2% on the first $184,500, and then effectively less than 1% on your total income. That is the issue right there, plain and simple. More and more money is going to the very top. and those people are not paying into Social Security at the same rate that everybody else is. That is the one solution that would genuinely, mathematically, fix the funding shortfall. But as long as the golden rule rules, meaning those who have the gold make the rules, are they going to pass legislation that says, okay, we need to start paying in like everybody else? Of course they're not. They are not going to do that willingly. So instead, what you're going to hear proposed is things like raising the retirement age again, which would essentially be a benefit cut disguised as a reform. And there is one other thing on the table. The current president has expressed interest in looking at the Australian system of privatized Social Security. And that's really been the intent from a certain corner of the political world since day one, to privatize Social Security. So what does privatization actually mean in practice? It means all of those trillions of dollars. And let's look at the actual numbers here. There is $2.5 trillion sitting in the Social Security Trust Fund right now, and about $1.2 trillion comes in from FICA taxes every single year. In 2024, $1.3 trillion was paid out in benefits. $1.2 trillion came in, $1.3 trillion went out. So there's a $100 billion gap. Where did that $100 billion come from? It came from the trust fund. That's the math. That's the reality. So Wall Street has wanted their hands on that money since 1935, when FDR first created this system. Since 1935, they have wanted that money. And who can blame them from a pure profit standpoint? You've got $1.2 trillion coming in every single year. Imagine the commissions. Imagine the fees. And there's a $2.5 trillion kitty sitting there that they could also dip into. And you know what they'd say? Heads we win, tails you lose. And I'm sure it won't blow up like the housing bubble did. Or like the AI bubble potentially could. And if it does blow up, well, the people at the top will be covered. They'll be fine, just like the housing crisis. Who paid for that in the end? We did. The regular people. The taxpayers. So if Social Security gets privatized and something goes wrong, who's going to pay for it? We will. Again. So what do we need to do? We need to actually do something we haven't done in 40 years, which is make our politicians actually act. Actually do something, not committees, not proposals, not press releases. Actual legislation that actually closes the funding gap and actually protects your check. And none of these politicians, not the ones in the current administration, not the ones in the previous administration, not the long list of politicians going back decades, has actually done that. And we are running out of time. I would actually argue that the goal all along has been to kick the can down the road until it becomes such a crisis that they can walk in and say, well, starting next month, your check is being cut by 23%. And at that point, they'll say, well, we tried everything. We're out of ideas. I guess we'll just hand it over to our friends on Wall Street. That has been the playbook. And if you don't want that outcome, you need to contact your representatives, and you need to make them understand that this is the issue that matters most to you and to your family. All right, let's get into some live questions here because we've got a great community and I want to make sure we're getting to your specific situations and your specific questions. We've got some people talking in the comments and I love that. We've got a great community here. People look out for each other, help each other understand benefits, give each other advice, and honestly also provide real emotional support to one another, which matters a lot. So we love seeing people talking to each other during our live Q&A. And I do want to give a shout out.